Hello and welcome back to FiddleUP. I'm Emerald Ray, and today we're going to be talking about playing faster. This is something I get asked about all the time. And it's the easiest question to answer in a short answer, but there's kind of a lot to it. So I'm going to go over what that is. So playing faster, all you have to do is make everything smaller. And I know that sounds really stupid simple. Oversimplified maybe, but that is the key. That really is the key, the whole key. That is to playing faster. When you first start out playing, all your movements are going to be just hugely macro, and this happens when you start learning dance movements as well, or anything at all that you start learning in the beginning. You have this very wide lens, and over time you just kind of refine and refine and refine. So that is what needs to happen to play faster, is that everything that you're doing needs to get really small so that it can go fast, because it can't go fast. When you first start off playing beginner tunes and your bow is doing all of this, you're just getting used to the movements. But if you're still doing those movements, you won't be able to go faster. So I have found that with my students over the years, that if you're ready to go faster, you will start to get annoyed with the fact that you can't go faster. And that is the sign that it's time for you to go faster, actually. There's a certain amount that you have to get used to the instrument, but I don't believe that, like, when you're starting out in the beginning and maybe at like a lower intermediate level, that it's too soon for you to start any of this stuff. You shouldn't have any ideas in your head of, oh, if I'm a beginner student, then I can't use ornamentation, or if I'm a lower intermediate student, it's not time for me to be playing tunes at full speed. It's always time for you to be doing that stuff if you're ready. And I find that students, if they're fine at the slower speeds, they're happy at those speeds, then they're not ready to go yet. And that's cool. That's totally fine. That the process takes as long as it takes. But if you're finding yourself getting frustrated, I guess your brain is going faster than your arms, then then all you have to do is get out of those kind of big baby step movements. You're kind of like, everything's kind of chunky, and there's just too much going on. So if you're feeling like you want to go faster with any tune that you're going to play, and you just want to make sure that if your bows, you're trying to play a jig or a reel or something like that, and your bows are this big, it's not going to happen. It just isn't. Your bows need to be this big. So if you're playing you're literally making it impossible for yourself to play it faster. So you got to break all those big movement habits and go, and that example, it's just, I was trying to do it and it feels very awkward to me, and I could probably try to pull that off if I practiced it. But for you, it's just gonna feel very frustrating. So that same tune. So that is me playing as small as possible. That's not even me playing as fast as possible. That is me doing the bare minimum there. And that's where you really want to get to. How little can I do with my bow? Okay? So once you've gotten there, and you're getting a good tone out of this, little bows. They're just little 1/2 inch, if that. You know, they feel even smaller in your hand than they do on the fiddle. So it feels like my hand is not moving at all. Another thing you want to do is, instead of using your arm, you want to get into using your wrist and your fingers more. So you might have noticed some of your favorite fiddle players, they have a very fluid hand. It's just like this beautiful little bouncy, it looks like they're conducting or something. It's just a very nice hand. And so that is them doing the absolutely basic bare bones minimum. They're not moving their shoulder and their elbow at all, really. It's just getting all into the fingers. I'm doing as little as possible here, and I'm getting a nice tone, and I'm able to do things very quickly right from here, from the wrist and from the hand. And obviously, if you have to change strings and you use your arm for those kind of macro movements. But as far as just the bowing goes, you really want to get used to these little tiny short bows. So another thing I was talking about, the bow hold videos. One thing that I mentioned was the fact that every Cape Breton player plays up here with like not even 2/3 of their bow available. And that's because they only ever play from here to here. Like this would be a long bow for a Cape Breton player. You know, they play beautiful slow airs and things like that, but they're not covering a whole bunch of space. And Cape Breton players tend to be self-taught or taught by each other. And there is not this long tradition of classical bow technique in the Cape Breton tradition at all. So you will notice a lot of old-time fiddle players, a lot of people that either have given up on their classical background entirely, if they ever had one, or they just never had it in the first place. They actually don't even bother with the bottom of the bow. They just use the middle of the bow. And that is for a very specific purpose, because you are playing so much fast music all the time. You don't actually need the whole thing. It's good to have the whole thing for balance. But the balance point will even change once you move your hand up a little bit. So that is the story of how to play faster. And so once you get a tune that you feel really comfortable with and you're ready to go to the next level with it, I'll take Wheelhouse as one of the intermediate level tunes. It's a good one to go fast. You want to just try and make your movements really small, but play the tune fairly slow. And this is because you want to get a speed that you're comfortable with the tune all the way through. Like really, like be honest. Don't try to go faster if you can't go faster. If you're struggling on the B part, you got to bring the whole tune down to the reality of where you are at. It's really hard. It's really frustrating. I struggle with this as well. I always want to go faster than I can with everything. And it's really a bummer when you bring the whole piece of music down to where you're really at and you go, it feels like so far away from where I want to be. But actually, that's the closest to where you are going to get to today. So it's a good reality check, but it's also that is actually the quickest way to get to the level that you want to be at. Because once you can play the whole tune at this lower speed, then it's much easier to ratchet it up. And you can do this very easily with a metronome. You can just put it up 1 click or 3 clicks or 5 clicks or, however much you want to work that up. You can just set a metronome, find the speed that you're comfortable at, and then slowly work it up. But you don't have to have a metronome to do this, although metronomes are great. There's also a lot of people who don't like using metronomes, and I totally understand why. They can feel and sound a little bit mechanical. And if you're going in terms of the dance tempos and things like that, if you're really getting into your dance ability and things like that, might not want to use a metronome because it actually might be too much of a crutch. Do you know what I mean? So you want to just find where you're at and then very slowly bring it up a tiny notch and a tiny notch and a tiny notch and a tiny notch and a tiny notch to the point where you're not even noticing getting faster. You're practicing the tune and it's not feeling uncomfortable to get to the next level at all. And so that might feel painstaking, but actually you could, in theory, get there from here to where you want to be in one short practice session. If you really sit down and you really do all those rounds of the tune. And it might not be super comfortable when you get to the speed that you want to be, or you might only get 80% there today. But once you've slept on it and tomorrow comes, you'll be so much better. You'll have all of that basis to work from, and you'll be able to work it up and work it up. But I have seen people in just the span of one of my workshops just go from 0 to 60, like without even realizing it, just by bringing themselves down. And I personally have also had the experience many times of having to bring myself down and then realized, an hour later that everything had sorted itself out and I was where I needed to be. So there's something about that, bringing everything down, bringing all your movements down, bringing your tempo down, just finding that little sweet spot and then moving up in tempo from there. And that is all you need in life to go faster. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was helpful for you, and I hope you're able to play 100 miles an hour by tomorrow. That's actually something that I should mention actually at this point before signing off. Something that happens in like mid to upper intermediate level is often that when people can finally play fast, they just want to play like 1,000 miles an hour. And you know what? Power to you at that point. I definitely had that phase. It's sort of like a little bit of an adolescent phase, which I went through when I was actually a teenager. And that often happens with people that play when they're younger, that they go through that adolescent phase of needing to go screaming fast on all their tunes. And then you sort of mature at some point and realize that, like, there's a context to all of these different tempos. And like, you need to be able to play the tune consistently at a speed, and you need to be able to play it at a certain speed for a certain reason. And that could be dancing. There's dancing happening and you need to work with that. Or it could be just the feel of it. There's a lot of play in the different tempos of what something feels like. And so you have to use your intuition as far as, what do things feel like. But there will come a day when you are actually struggling. If you're sort of, lower intermediate or lower level and just feeling like, I will never play faster, I promise you the day will come, and sooner than you think, where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't play slow anymore. Like, I can't control myself. And, I've gone through this with my fiddle singing stuff, in developing my sound with that. I'm so constantly struggling when I'm learning a new thing. I finally got that new thing, and then I can't play it at the right speed. I'm always too fast, or my tempo is going up and down with each new section of the song or something like that. So this is actually something that happens not just in those, in that intermediate level. It happens in the intermediate level of any new thing that you learn. So just so you know that there is sort of an arc to this of, you'll go from very, 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 very fast, and then you need to chill out. So that that is all you could ever possibly need to know about speed, I think. So I hope this is helpful, and let me know if you have questions, and I will see you in the next video.